welcome back everybody to another video. This is a video that I've been waiting to do for a while at this point, and since all of the rookies have now been drafted from the 2025 NFL Draft, it's time to get into my top 25 rankings for rookies for the 2025 to 2026 NFL season. And obviously this list is going to be very, you could take it for what it's worth. This is my own personal rankings, and obviously things are going to change around throughout the season. The injuries are going to happen, training camp's going to happen, so a lot of things are going to change, but for now this is how I have the rookies ranked in fantasy. And this is very important because if you're playing fantasy football for the first time, rookies can be a key contributor to your season, whether that's winning games or losing games. If you draft a Marvin Harrison, thought he was going to be pretty decent last year, he wasn't the best. You draft a late round wide receiver like Brian Thomas Jr., and he's a possible league winning receiver for your team. So that is what makes the difference in fantasy football sometimes. These players, these rookies, can be very important. We're going to start at number 1 with Ashton Jeanty. He's, at this point, obviously the one. He goes to the Raiders, and honestly, I feel like he's at least going to have a Bijan Robinson type rookie season. Maybe not as good as Bijan, because that Atlanta Falcons offensive line is a whole lot more decent than the Raiders offensive line. So they have Jackson Powers-Johnson out there blocking Colton Miller, and I think Jeanty did pretty good at Boise State, where the offensive line wasn't anything spectacular. So watch out for him. He's going to be like a little Marshawn Lynch out there running the ball. And I can see him being taken in the first round of fantasy football drafts, and it's going to be a really nice starting running back. Obviously, there's questions about him as he is a rookie. A lot of questions about players like him and the other rookies throughout the class. But I would gladly take him if I was around pick 9, 10, 11, or even if he falls down to pick 14. I would gladly pick up a player like Ashton Jeanty. He's really awesome, and I can see a great fantasy football season out of him. Getting to Travis Hunter at number 2, and Travis Hunter really depends. It depends on whether or not his contributions as a corner are going to contribute to your league or not. If they are not, I would definitely push him down the rankings, and I would have Ted McMillan over him. I would probably push him down to where Omarion Hampton is. But in a whole lot of leagues, he's going to be getting points for both wide receiver and corner, which means he is a very valuable piece playing both sides of the ball. So Travis Hunter, and think about it, he's in that Liam Cohen offense where Liam Cohen was able to get the ball to both Chris Godwin and Mike Evans last year. So I think he's not going to have any issue helping elevate Trevor Lawrence's game and saying, all right, you don't just have Brian Thomas to throw the ball to anymore, or Evan Ingram's not out there anymore, but you have Brenton Strange, Brian Thomas Jr., and Travis Hunter's out there, so watch out for that trio. And I do actually have Brenton Strange as kind of like a sleeper player this year. A lot of people aren't talking about him, but I think he's going to be really nice, as in the games he played where Ingram was injured, he did pretty solid last year. So watch out for Travis Hunter on a Liam Cohen offense. I can see nothing but great things out of him. And then obviously you have his key contributions on either special teams or corner, so that's going to make him such a valuable option for fantasy football. Getting to Tetairoa McMillan, Bryce Young finally has his wide receiver 1 on the team. And then you have Adam Thielen, Jonathan Mingo, a couple other smaller guys. They signed Hunter Renfrow. Doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Tetairoa McMillan's still going to be that 1 on the team, and he's going to be absolutely phenomenal. A guy that reminds me of Drake London or a Mike Evans type dude. He's just going to go up and get that ball. And this could possibly be the reason why the Panthers make the playoffs this year, is a key contributor like Tetairoa McMillan. And I think even for fantasy football purposes, look, 70 catches last year, 70 receptions, 917 and 5 touchdowns. That's a very nice season at Arizona. And I think Bryce Young is going to get him the rock a lot, so that's why he's in my top 3. And then quarterbacks are going to be valued a lot higher. Obviously, I wouldn't usually have Cam Ward up this high, but since he is a quarterback and quarterbacks are going to get more points, and I think he does have a solid Tennessee team around him. He's going to get that ball out to Calvin Ridley. His former teammate Xavier Restrepo's on the team now. So Cam Ward's going to be also a very nice option. I would think about taking him in the late rounds. I would more gun for a high upside player, like maybe Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart. But because Cam Ward's going to go a little bit higher due to the fact that he was a first overall pick. But I would still pick him up. He has nice ability in the pocket, and like I said during draft season, kind of reminds me of Ben Roethlisberger. So he's not the same caliber of player, but he can be very nice, especially in that offense with Brian Callahan. As we get to RJ Harvey. And RJ Harvey is a player I didn't specifically like that much. I didn't even have him in my top 10 running back rankings during the draft. But you take pretty much any running back that would have been drafted in this draft, you put them behind Denver's offensive line, and that is like, he's going to be absolutely phenomenal. If you don't know, there's a certain stat out there that is like running backs drafted behind top 10 offensive lines in the league usually end up with a statistically higher season. They have like some of the greatest seasons, like Bijan Robinson and a couple of other running backs. Even you took J.K. Dobbins, put him behind the Chargers offensive line, he did really nice. So RJ Harvey's probably going to have a similar type season. And you look at him, and he didn't have anything crazy at UCF, but he looked pretty solid anyways there. And yeah, I think behind Denver's offensive line, pick him up maybe end of the second, early third round, fourth round, and he's going to be a great running back to have. And obviously, they don't really have anybody back there. And even when they did have players who were like Jaleel McLaughlin and such, they were still doing really good. They were one of the highest rated rushing teams in all of the NFL. So you take RJ Harvey, who's a lot better than a lot of the backs on that team, he's going to have a really great season. And then Omarion Hampton, I had to put him up here because, I don't know, just splitting that backfield with Najee Harris is going to be tough. But if he does end up getting that starting job later on in the season, say Najee just kind of falls off a cliff, he's just, like, look at the stats here. 900 yards, 950 at UNC, 9 touchdowns, and he was even good in the receiving game as well. So watch out for Omarion Hampton. And he would be somebody I would more pick for dynasty leagues because he's going to be definitely a guy to count on a couple of years down the road when Najee Harris might not be on the team anymore. You know, I believe he has contract discussions coming up. So Omarion Hampton, very nice option though. I just wouldn't draft him based on his value at this point. I don't know. There's a couple of other players that I feel like you get higher value on, so I wouldn't really gun for him, but I'm still going to throw him in my top 10 because he's just an incredibly talented back, and I could see him winning that job there. I just didn't think it was the best fit during the draft because then you kind of have that split backfield. So, and then Jackson Dart, another guy getting thrown up there due to quarterbacks just kind of being higher, and he is also really, I think he's going to have a really good season. Throwing that ball to Malik Neighbors and, you know, I don't know. The Giants don't really have the best team, but I think the fact that they have such a good defense, Jackson Dart's going to, you know, probably succeed a little bit more than people think. I mean, the defense is incredible. So as long as he grows that connection with Malik Neighbors, and right now, obviously, Russell Wilson, starting quarterback, whatever, and I'm sure Russ will carry the load for a little bit. There's definitely going to be a point in the season where Jackson Dart gets that start at quarterback. They picked him in the first round for a reason. He could sit the whole season maybe behind Russell Wilson. But I see him getting his start somewhere in the middle of the season. And Jameis Winston, you don't have to worry about him. Another guy that I would think about for dynasty leagues, both him and Hampton are really good options for those. But anyways, getting on to Tyler Warren. Indianapolis finally drafts a tight end. I've been wanting them to draft a tight end for like so long. Brock Bowers in previous drafts, or Michael Mayer, like so many different options. They finally picked Tyler Warren, who's an absolute beast. See, he's not like crazy in that receiving game or anything, but he's like a Swiss Army knife at tight end. So he can even run quarterback if you want him to for like a play. He's like a mini Taysom Hill in a way, but a much better version of Taysom Hill. And there you go. You got Anthony Richardson, a new weapon to throw to. Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, Tyler Warren are going to be a nice trio. And hopefully he succeeds. If not, you could put Daniel Jones in there. But I see a great season out of Tyler Warren, and he's one of the best tight ends. I don't really see a Brock Bowers type season out of him. Obviously, that season was insane last year for fantasy and the NFL and as a whole. But I see a very nice season out of Tyler Warren. As we get on to Travion Henderson, obviously you have Ramondre Stevenson back there. It doesn't matter. By the end of the season, I see Trey Henderson being that starting back. Another guy, him and Judkins are both going to be so great for Dynasty Leagues. But Travion Henderson deserves to be that starting running back, so get him involved. And I could totally see him being something special for the New England Patriots. So get him in there. I think his value at this point is going around round 5, round 6. That's awesome value. Maybe he sits on your bench for a couple of weeks in fantasy, but I see him being a very nice starter for them behind a decent offensive line. So getting down to my number 10, I have Quinshon Judkins. And a lot of people have been hating on Quinshon Judkins, and they're also saying that it's going to be a split backfield. You know, there's Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson. Like, Quinshon Judkins is the best running back on that team. No more Nick Chubb. He struggled last season in fantasy, but he did kind of have a redemption, which was good. He got some touchdowns here and there. But Judkins is just, he was so nice going back to Ole Miss. He's going to be an awesome running back on that team, and I don't know where his value currently stands, but I don't really care. I would draft him easily. Like I said, rookies, especially running backs, are sometimes league winners, and who knows what type of season that Quinshon Judkins has. So I would totally draft him. As we get to Tank Dell's new replacement, Jaden Higgins, don't know when the hell Tank Dell is going to play again. So Nico Collins, Jaden Higgins, and even Christian Kirk, who the Texans got from Jacksonville. That's going to be a nice wide receiver tandem. No more Stephon Diggs on the team. You go younger. And I think Nico Collins and Jaden Higgins have the possibility to be a top wide receiver duo in the league. And with Kirk, it could be a nice trio. Maybe not a top 3 trio, but a nice trio. Jaden Higgins, a lot of people are going to overlook him, but having him as the wide receiver 2 could have Stroud having like a great junior season. And watching him throw the ball. Obviously, I draft Nico Collins. He's going decently early. But Jaden Higgins, getting him in one of the later rounds as wide receiver 2 on a playoff contending Texans team is not bad at all. So, I'll pick him up based on his value, wherever you find fit for him. Caleb Johnson may split that backfield with Jaylen Warren, but outside of that, look at his touchdowns, 917 yards, 7 touchdowns. Even got involved in the receiving game. Him and Jaylen Warren are going to be a nice tandem. Only reason I pushed him down the board a bit is because I don't trust that Steelers team this year. They really got rid of everything. No more George Pickens on the team. Russell Wilson, Justin Fields are gone. Najee Harris is gone. So Caleb Johnson may do good based on volume, but I don't see that team as a whole doing good, and that is always a key contributor. If this is the first time you're playing fantasy football, it really does matter if the team is contending or not, because you could have a team like the Jacksonville Jaguars who have Brian Thomas and Travis Etienne, and the fact that they did horrible last year is a very important contributor, because then Travis Etienne does worse, and then Brian Thomas struggles in some games, and Evan Ingram the same. So you just got to watch out for that. The team can have stars, but it really depends on the success of the team around them as well. You could have a diamond in the rough type player, and the team can still do absolutely horrible. So that's why I pushed Caleb Johnson down the board, but I do like him a lot. And I think he's going pretty late, so I would pick him up based on that nice value that you would find out of a player like him. Emeka, kind of down here, because I would have pushed him up way more up the board. And you know what? A player that I didn't even throw on here is it's Luther Burden. And I'm going to edit this list literally right now. Luther Burden needs to be on this list. I'll show you guys where I'm going to put him right now. Luther Burden is going to be... he's going to stay right here, I think, actually. No, I'll move him down a little. He's going to be right here, in between Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. So I'm going to edit this list real quick. I meant to put him in earlier, actually. Luther Burden, going to be a nice option, but I wanted to put him above Emeka Egbuka for a certain reason. Ben Johnson, now with the Chicago Bears, he wants to draft Luther Burden in the second round. When he was playing with Amon-Ra St. Brown in the slot, Amon-Ra had some of the best seasons we've ever seen from a slot wide receiver. You take Luther Burden, you put him in that offense. I don't know if Rome Odunze is going to be the 2 or the 3, but it doesn't matter. Luther Burden is your slot guy, and he's going to do absolutely awesome in Chicago. I can already feel it happening, and obviously there was issues, but I think they can be fixed. And number 87 for a wide receiver, bringing the number 80s back is cool. It's more reminding me of like a tight end number, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day. I think Luther Burden is going to be awesome, and I think he's one of those must-draft rookie players. Obviously, he could. The wide receiver trio in Chicago is kind of crowded. They have DJ Moore and they have Rome Odunze and such. But I don't know. I just feel like he's going to have a really great season, staying in the slot, and he's one of those must-draft players. So I'll put him right above here in between Quinshon Judkins, because I do think TreVeyon Henderson is going to have a great... And running backs, it's different, too. TreVeyon Henderson has a chance to start. Luther Burden's kind of in a crowded wide receiver room. So, and now we will get down to... Nope, Emeka. Alright, so back to Emeka Egbuka. If I could only speak in these videos. But anyways, so we get down to him, and obviously I like him just because he's in the slot as well. Like, these slot receivers are going to be so important to have in fantasy, and it's a thing that happens every single year. Like, it's so important. You don't know how Chris Godwin's going to come back and look. I definitely like him this year, even picking him up late rounds. He was so phenomenal last year for the games he was healthy, but you don't know. Mike Evans is aging, so I'm slowly liking the Emeka Egbuka pick more and more. I would more pick him for a dynasty league, most definitely. But if he's sitting there and say your 7th, 8th, 9th round, I don't know how far he falls, honestly, I would possibly pick him up just because having that slot guy and not knowing how Godwin comes back, and Mike Evans and Godwin both getting older, Emeka Egbuka is a nice option, and like I said, especially for dynasty leagues. So, as we get on to Matthew Golden, who I have just down, because I don't know where he's really going to fit in that wide receiver room. You have Jayden Reed and Romeo Doubs and a couple of other players, you know. But I don't know why. I feel like he's going to be that standout guy and possibly be the receiver 1, receiver 2 on the team, and I think he's going to fit in nicely. For fantasy purposes, I don't think I'd really touch anybody in that Green Bay room, but if anybody, I would probably go with Matthew Golden, or maybe even Jayden Reed, but his season last year was a little up and down. So, but Matthew Golden I mess with, definitely. But like I said, that's kind of why he gets pushed down a little bit here. You don't know where he's going to fit, and he's in that very crowded room. Same with Emeka. But for like a player like Luther Burden, even though he's in a crowded room, I feel like he's going to stand out. So that's why I have him pushed up a bit. As we get down to some of my later rankings, number 16 is Cam Skattebo. And I think he is actually going to end up splitting that workload with Tyrone Tracy. And who even knows, he could end up being a starting guy. But I think he's going to be one of the high-end RB2s in the league. And that also helps the Giants out and a quarterback like Jackson Dart, because he has a great run game around him. Tracy broke out last year as a rookie. Obviously wasn't on Saquon Barkley's level, but still was a great rookie. And then having an RB2 like Cam Skattebo on the team, who is just literally like he's like Peyton Hillis, the way he runs the football. He's also just like a truck, the way he runs the football. Like, he's going to be awesome. You're going to see a couple of highlight plays from him, but I don't know if based off his value, I would really gun for him, which is why I put him down here. If he went to a team where he was the starter, I'd definitely move him up the rankings, but he's splitting that backfield with Tyrone Tracy. So he's moved down, but I still like Cam Scat. Tyler Shough mostly put up here because he is now the starting quarterback on the New Orleans Saints. Derek Carr just retired. Outside of that, Saints aren't really that good. He's going to probably have an average season for a quarterback, maybe above average. As you can see here, 14 touchdowns, I believe, to 12 picks. Not the best season. Like, I'm really not a big fan of Tyler Shough. Couldn't even remember his name in one of the videos I did. I don't know how he's going to do, but I think he's just going to have like a solid season for a quarterback. So if you're looking for a decent, maybe high-end QB2 on your team, I wouldn't pick him in the late rounds and have him start, just because he's a little bit, like, it's a little undecided how he's going to play. But still, like I said, if you're looking for a solid guy, pick up Tyler Shough in one of the later rounds. Maybe if he falls down and becomes a UDFA, or not a UDFA, but a waivers player. I'm still so used to talking about the draft. Then I would definitely pick him up off waivers. Mason Taylor, no more Tyler Conklin on the team. The Jets don't entirely know how to utilize their tight ends, but when they do, they get touchdowns, is what I noticed in fantasy football. So pick up Mason Taylor, and you probably see a decent season out of him. I don't think he was anything tremendous at LSU, but for fantasy football purposes, don't have him be your starting tight end. But he's going to fall pretty late based on the fact he's a rookie and not a lot of people know who he is. And I would definitely pick him up as a backup tight end on your team. Getting down to Shedeur. So this spot's interchangeable, Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel. You don't entirely know how either of them are gonna play. But damn, is that? Okay. So this is like their projected fantasy points, I guess. I don't know. Then we get down, and yeah, like I said, Shedeur Sanders. Spot's interchangeable. You don't really know who's even gonna be the starter on the Browns. But if Shedeur does end up being the starter later in the season, I would pick him up for fantasy football purposes. I would maybe draft him and say like the late rounds just to be a backup. QB3 type guy on your team where you're like, all right, I'll see how he does, and if not, I'll drop him to waivers. But outside of that, we just talked the whole draft season about Shedeur Sanders. I don't have much to say about him. But yeah, if he becomes the starter, then he could be a high upside guy. But that's just kind of undecided right now. So he's down a little bit late in the rankings and is more of like a dynasty guy. A couple of these guys down late are going to be more dynasty driven, especially players like Colston Loveland and Bashal Tutin, Jaden Blue. We'll talk about some other options who are down here. But then getting to Elijah Arroyo. Noah Fant's still on the teams, and Seattle doesn't utilize tight ends crazy. So Elijah Arroyo probably has like a decent rookie season. I don't expect too much out of him. If you're looking for a late round tight end 2, tight end 3 type guy, I would pick him. Honestly, I would maybe even pick Colston Loveland over him, especially for dynasty purposes. But outside of that, if you're just playing in a regular league, I would pick Arroyo for this season because I don't think Colston Loveland's going to get a lot of the love from Caleb Williams. But they have 2 tight ends in that room now. Cole Kmet, who knows? Loveland could have a good season. And then Jack Beck is a guy who I might even move up these rankings because I absolutely love Jack Beck. I love talking about him during draft season in the sleepers video. And he's now, the wide receiver 2 on the Raiders? Because, yeah, it's him, Jacoby Myers, and Trey Tucker. I really would love him. Like, he's kind of like a sleeper at this point, I guess, right? All the way down here. I would love to draft a player like Jack Beck, and based off of his value of where he's going at this point, I would totally take him in the later rounds. That's why he is 21 because, you know, he's kind of like an underrated type guy who's just like down here and he's just kind of around. But at the same time, I really like Jack Beck watching his tape. I don't know how he's going to entirely fit in the Raiders offense, but he's kind of a bit of a sleeper down here. I'm definitely going to think about moving him up the rankings. But for now, I'll pick him all the way down here and take him based off that value. And then Colston Loveland, Trey Harris, Bashal Tutin, and Jaden Blue are getting more to the dynasty level of players. I have a couple more at the bottom who are really dynasty based. But Colston Loveland, I loved him at Michigan. I just don't think he's going to get a lot of love from Caleb Williams in his first season on the Chicago Bears. But dynasty, I would take Colston Loveland all day. He's a very fun rookie, and I hope he has a better season than I'm expecting. As we get to Trey Harris, number 23. And Trey Harris, it really depends if Quentin Johnston continues playing decently like he did last season or not. But I could see Trey Harris definitely breaking out and being a little bit better than I expect. And based off his value of where he's going in fantasy, I would easily pick up Trey Harris as well. Same when talking about Jaden Blue and Bashal Tutin and a couple of other players up here. Caleb Johnson, based on his value, is very good. Trevion Henderson as well. Burden might go up the ranks a little bit, so I would question some things about him. But if you're picking a rookie and it's really good value, then why not? Like I said, some of these guys can win you leagues, so you got to be on the lookout for them. And Trey Harris, I don't know if he win you a league, but he could be a nice flex option, nice wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 on the bench type guy that you put in for a week to try and get into the playoffs. And then Bashal Tutin, Jaden Blue, you can kind of talk about them in the same dimensions, more dynasty-focused backs, but who knows? Say Travis Etienne falls off the face of the earth, Tank Bigsby isn't the best. Tutin could be a very nice running back for the Jaguars, and I could see him being the starter a couple years from now. But for this season in itself, I would pick him if he's on waivers based off value. Maybe you need him for a week, but I don't expect too much out of him. And then Jaden Blue, you can pretty much say the same things. I've gotten to the point where I think Javonte Williams is just kind of that starter on that team. So, but Blue's going to be a nice change of pace running back. He's going to kind of be like who's the player for the Bills? Ray Davis. He's going to kind of be like Ray Davis in his rookie season, I feel like, for the Bills. He's going to get some touchdowns here and there, but he's not going to be a consistent RB. And then just getting down here, I have a couple of other players who I wanted to put in the top 25. Tyler Loop, obviously, is going to be awesome for Baltimore, taking over Justin Tucker's spot, of course. Justin Tucker, obviously, off the team now because he's fucking weird. Love Tyler Loop because he's just gonna he should be even higher ranked, honestly, because he's gonna get those points for the Ravens. And then a couple of these other guys who I just kind of threw into here who are more dynasty based, definitely, like Torrey Horton, 100%. Pat Bryant could be worked up the list a little bit. He's gonna be nice behind Sutton. Kyle Williams, same thing. ETN, Woody Marks, DJ Giddens, and Horton are all heavily dynasty based, but I really like each of them because they all have their own specific things that make them great. Torrey Horton especially, I even thought about throwing up on this top 25 list. I love Torrey Horton's tape. He's just a surprisingly fun player, just injury riddled and stuff. You know, he couldn't play that much this final season. And then Trevor Etienne, definitely dynasty. Woody Marks, same thing. But outside of that, that is going to be the end of my top 25 rankings for the 2025-26 NFL season for fantasy purposes. Obviously, this is all fantasy based. But yeah, I like a lot of the value based on some of these late round guys like Jack Beck, Trey Harris. You could even find value out of Jaden Higgins. It's going to be fun in that Texans offense. RJ Harvey, you know, he's going to go pretty high, but I still expect really great things out of him in the running game and receiving game. And that's where it's going to come to an end for me, guys. Of course, you got your Genties and your Travis Hunters and your Tent McMillans. But think about it. Pick up a rookie this NFL draft season, this fantasy football draft season. It's not NFL draft season anymore. And think about some of these guys, you know, and if they end up falling down to your pick, you got a couple of extra bench spots. Think about picking them because, like I said, fantasy rookie players will, you know, they could fall short or they could dominate leagues, like a player like Brian Thomas Jr. or a player like Malik Neighbors. So be on the lookout for them, and that's going to be all from me for this video. Hope you guys liked it. Nice little change up of pace from some UCLA Dynasty, although I do have more of those videos coming soon. But that's going to be all from me, and get excited. It is fantasy football season. It is starting to get closer and closer. Obviously, the summer's coming, and then after that, we got the NFL season coming back, and should be doing some more NFL-related videos, some more fantasy videos, and I'm very excited for that. Anyways, I will see you guys all in the next video. Talk to you then.